Welcome to week 10 of Briggins TV. This week I've interviewed Vorhauer from Rae-Line Upholstery. Amazing story. This guy at the age of 4 was dumped on the side of the road by his parents, kicked from orphanage to orphanage until the Salvation Army finally took him under their wings. He talks about stress, talks about how he doesn't have any because of all the crap that he went through as a young kid, made him a very resilient man and, as he would say, a little bastard, and tough. And that's how he has built one of Australia's largest upholstery businesses. He talks about the recession that Australia was meant to have, so for those business owners out there at the moment that are struggling, watch his story. Play the long game, that's his key point.
What's your name again?
Ray Vorhauer,
And what company do you got,
Rae-Line.
What does Rae-Line do?
We're upholsterers, but in a big way. We've just finished 63,000 Kenworths. First of June 1972.
What got you into Rae-Line? How did you start that business?
I was working, well, I have to really go right back. Okay, I can't remember anything from December 1944, 4 years before that.
Yeah.
But I was picked up off the street by the welfare, me and my brother and my sister. My sister got caught first. I must have been a street kid at the time because I knew Fitzroy well, even at the age of 4. I grabbed my brother and ran round Fitzroy and threw him in a 44-gallon drum and jumped in there after him. I don't know how long it took to find us, but they found us eventually, sort of thing, you know. Took us to a place called Royal Park, which is behind the Melbourne Zoo, actually, there. And then about 3 months later, when they found, after we went to court, they called us the inmates. They don't give you a name, you know. And it was because my parents couldn't look after us, because it was the war years, you know. They had no money, no food. So they sent us to Andrew Kerr in Mornington. And that wasn't a bad home. That was a baby's home sort of thing, and boys and girls. From freedom of information of mine, I've got, why did you send him here? He needs glasses, he's got a broken shoulder, he's got asthma and he stutters, right? And they said, well, we can't do anything about it. We'll fix that up some other time, you know? Anyway, so I stayed at Mornington till 1950. St. Nicholas Glenroy, right? At first we thought it wasn't on the bad little place, but it turned out to be a vast of a place, you know. It was a sort of Anglican church minister, and if you got whipped 3 times a week, you were lucky, sort of thing, you know. They used to whip you, they'd come out, they'd do all sorts of things to you, sort of thing, yeah. And then that went on for 4 years, right there. The day I turned 14, they found a job for me in town. It was Lane Textiles. It was a textile company. I was just a messenger boy. I stayed there for 2 years. At the same time, they moved me to the Salvation Army in Hawthorne, right there, which was a good place. And but got mixed up with some bad people. Got locked up a couple of times in sort of Glenferrie, but the Salvos would always come and say there's nothing wrong with him. Then one day I decided that no, that's not my life. So I pissed off and hitchhiked to Sydney. And I got a job. I even got a job at sort of Dunlop, right? And but unknown to me, the Salvos thought there was something in me. So they got in their little Thames wagon. Never been out of Melbourne, these guys, right? And they drove all the way to Sydney to find me. And they walked Sydney and walked Sydney. They had a rough idea where I would be, sort of thing, right? Because some of the other kids, so they come and I was walking. It was my turn. I was the youngest kid boarding with me other mates. And I was walking. They said, you have to go and buy some milk. So I was walking down the street, and who do I bump into? The 2 Salvos. Shit, you know, I go like that. So they said, you know, come on, gave me a little speech and all this sort of thing. Said, we're going to give you a week to get home. If you don't get home, then the welfare will be notified and you'll be put into a bad boys home. sort of thing. So I thought, anyway, they left. I thought, bugger that, I'm not going home. But by Wednesday, my conscience got to me, and I went home. And they found a job for me up at Hyatt. It was an upholstery job, and that's what I was meant to do. It was just natural, sort of thing. I was only, 16 then? So I stayed there till I was 19, and it was a family business, and I knew I couldn't go any further. So then I went to a place in Hawthorne called Weber's, and that was quite a big company, and they taught me everything. I went there as a cleaner, a storeman, a manager, and the top manager. But by this time the company was going broke, and so I decided to, they were doing 1 truck a week in the upholstery for Kenworth, and Kenworth asked them to do the sort of different colours. They only had a chocolate colour, and they said, bugger off, it's only 1 truck a week. So one of the boys at Kenworth said, why don't you start your own business, Ray? And I went, all right. You know, but I'd been in the accounts, in that company I'd been through everything, sort of running 3 factories, and you know, I was only 30 something sort of thing there, and anyway, so I started it, and that's how life started. It started 1 truck a week, 2 trucks a week, 3 trucks a week, and now we're doing I think 15 a week sort of thing. We've been up to 22. That is called, I'm going to start the stutter now, that is called anyway, whatever it's called, a Semco, right? A Semco, right? A Semco. And I happen to be in the Simpson Desert. I always have a satellite phone, because that's my hobby, travelling out back, right? And one of my mates at Kenworth said, Ray, Kenworth want to outsource. So I thought, I can't do it myself. I phoned 2 other companies up that we're good mates with. I said, I'll see you in a week, and we'll meet at the York Hotel. So, and that's how Semco started. Any job that is not, that they don't like, sort of thing, the things that they stuff up, we sort of assemble everything. I think we do about 25% of the Kenworth outside now. And then we sell it back to them, sort of thing there, right? The 3 companies, we have 170, sort of thing. 2 in Melbourne and then sort of 1 up in the Gold Coast. The 1 up in the Gold Coast does boats, and that sort of boat seats and all that. Some of the other things we did in Rae-Line in 1985, I think. I built 100 houseboats, which were sort of tradable, and they were going fantastic till someone called a recession we had to have, you know, because all our customers were pensioners and farmers with their wheat checks, and they were 50,000-60,000, right? We sold 12, I think, to the Japanese on that. And they took them to the Guam Island because they had houseboats there, and the Guam Islands then, the Japs used that as a brothel, right? And they had to go out and clean the big boats where our boats could be trailered in, sort of thing there. So they were, we sold them for 100,000, and the Japs said that was very cheap. They sold them to their customers for 300,000. On that. It was amazing sort of thing there, you know. Mary, who ended up turning to be my wife, she was forelady at this company, and so we got real friendly, and I was married at the time, but it wasn't working out, you know. The boss, I didn't get paid much more than the workers, you know. And one day the boss caught me, he sort of came in and caught me doing some jobs that wasn't related to the company. And he said, it was sort of deck chair covers for another friend of mine. I was making 100 a week in between running the bloody place, right? And he said, well, that'll have to stop. And I said, well, you'll have to give me an extra $70 a week, mate. And he said, no. I said, well, okay. I'll give you, that's when my mate Brian Norman rang me from Kenworth. I told him what was happening. He said, well, start your own business, Ray. I'll give you the contract. So I gave him 6 weeks notice. I left, after 15 years, I left with 1 week's wage. And of course I had no savings. Mary, she left a bit later because they sacked her. She got 3 months' wages. So that's all we had. And that I had a couple of dollars saved up, sort of thing, you know, but it wasn't much. It was just because you're trying to look after an ex-wife and sort of 3 kids, sort of thing, which you can imagine back in the 60s and 70s, it was pretty hard. I've never suffered with stress, and yet people can't believe that, because what happened to me in the home, when I went to the home after Mornington, I had chronic asthma, right? And I never ever had any medicine for 4 years. So when I got it, I'd just stay home. At that home, back to the home, it was a brutal home sort of thing. He used to hold my head underwater in a bath to make me breathe properly, sort of thing. Like just little things like that, sort of thing, right? And at school, there, I had a teacher, because my stuttering, which you might not believe now, but my stuttering was so bad I had to stamp my foot like that to even talk. She used to make me get up and read. So one day I thought, bugger it, I'm not going to school again. I've only had 3 years of school, right? So we have to march to school, right? So I thought, and sort of no one sort of knew this up till recently. So we'd all march to school, 30 of us, right? But when I got to school, I'd then piss off. And I'd hang around Mornington. There was lots of little yabby dams. I'd go yabby fishing and sort of do all sorts of things, right? And then when school was over, I'd be back in the schoolyard. And the school never woke up to it because of my asthma. They thought he's just staying home again because he's got asthma. So I never went to school, sort of thing, Turkey, right? And so lots of people say to me, you don't pronounce your words properly, Ray, and all this. I couldn't care a fuck, right? There, because that is how life is. But I believe my life was set out for me. The things I've done, most people say, how did you bloody do it? And I've never been scared, sort of thing. But when I was working at Weber's, right, they made me foreman, works manager and all that. I'd be cutting on the things, be working for GM and all that sort of thing. And I was planning how I would treat my workers. And I didn't have a bloody dollar to me name. That was just a dream sort of thing, you know, and then it happened. When they moved me to the Salvation Army, right, from that day onwards, I was working in the city at Lane Textiles, but on the weekends I had 2 free jobs. Because what I've seen, people who had nice cars and things, they were all hard workers. So I think that was sort of bred in me, sort of thing there, you know. In the home, they turned me into a little bastard. And on a Friday night, the ministries come out for their office because we all wet the bed, right? And you'd have to bend over and he'd have a whip and he'd give you free whips, sort of thing there, right? So that turned me into a tough bastard, sort of thing, because I was one of the kids that sort of retaliated all the time. I've been to 2 or 3 reunions of kids in the home and they're still suffering. It built me as a little tough bugger sort of thing there. And that really helped me with Kenworth and companies. That my 3 boys have taken over, I gave them, when I felt I was ready to leave, I gave them a business each. And the other proudest thing is my 3 my three grandsons are working in there now, sort of thing. So it's going to go on and on. My boys never had an easy time. They were working for me at 7 and 8. They had to sweep the floor, clean the toilets, and they got nothing till they were about 30. They were just a worker. And then, so I built them up, and they seen their dad go through all the hard times. Because, you know, there was recessions after recessions, and I did a lot of stupid things. I spent too much money at times, you know. I bought a $200,000 speedboat once, you know, when I didn't have any money in the bank, and little things like that. Okay. The first thing anyone asks me if they're going to start a business, I say to them, you know how to make your product, but you know nothing about money. So you got to get a counter, not a bean counter, a counter who's been in business, and he'll teach you all the tax laws, right? There, sort of thing. And we've still got the same accountant that we've had since 1980, I think, sort of thing there, right? Because up till then, we were losing money with the tax man were taking money left, right and centre. So that's the only thing I tell them. You must get a really good accountant sort of thing there, you know. But, in that big 89, 90 recession, when Keating called the recession we had to have, we'd borrowed 450 grand. Within a year, we were paying 25% compounding daily on that loan. And the bank called me in. They asked which bank, right, in the town. And he said to me, I've closed 900 companies this year, and you won't be the one that gets away. I stamped the floor. I think I broke his table. And I said, I'm not going to pay you one more fucking cent. So for 3 years, this is a true story, he sent me a statement every month, right? But I put everything I had, I put up for a contract of sale. I had boats, I had land, I had farms, and the bank couldn't move. They couldn't move in on me, sort of thing, because I had contracts. And when you have contracts, they can't touch it. And some of the things I sold the farm, and that took 3-4 years to sell, sort of thing there, right? The only thing he beat me to, we had our first factory in Bayswater, and I forgot about that. And he put that up for sale. I'm standing there for the sale. There was High Hall and all the companies around me. They all knew me. And it only sold for $870, and he wanted $300. And he said to me, well, I want the 30. I said, well, you're not going to get 30, mate. Yeah, that's life. He said, well, I'm going after your boys. I said, I don't think so, buddy. He said, why not? High Hall's they're all listening to me, right? And I take out a tape, a recorded tape, right? I said, remember that? I said, remember you said you've closed 900, I'm going to be here. I've got it all on tape here, mate, right? He said, what? And he just walked off. A week later, I got a statement with nil balance on that, with up to $3 million, right? But anyway, High Hall asked me to play the tape. And this is where my cunning and bullshit comes in. And so I plugged it into my car. It was the Johnny Cash tape. And he thought I had actually taped the meeting, sort of thing there, right? So that's the things I think the home taught me. No, because I knew the year before I retired, we lost about 500 grand through all sorts of things, Kenworth dropping like that and other companies going down. Then the next year, I made 1.75 million, right? And I knew that was my time to leave. So I just called the boys in. I said, in a simple way, I said, boys, I'm leaving. The company's yours. It's in your name. I'd set up everything with my accountant, so I'm still the chairman, and that's for a legal reason. If I pass on,
only the chairman's name only changes, so the government's not there to rip you off, sort of thing. There, you know. So, but I felt comfortable, mate. I get up, I check my iPad now, that I've got on any message. I got the Herald Sun and the Australian on my iPad, right? So I just read that, see what the news is.
Yeah.
By that time, if Maggie's there, she's up. I make her a nice coffee and sit out here,
Yeah.
and we just talk sort of thing, work out what we're going to do for the day.
Yeah.
Some days we do nothing, other days we get in the car, Red Hill or somewhere, sort of thing. Maggie's kids are overseas, right? So I always plan it around my outback trips.
Yeah.
So I got to make the plans these trips for us, right?
Yeah.
There's about 15 of us sort of thing. Yeah. 17 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our bank manager, Keith Hando, right? He's now living at Flinders. He said, I'll always look after you, Ray. I come in at 8 o'clock at night and you and Mary are still there. Sort of thing there, on there. So, anyone who starts business, it is a lot of sacrifice. But I used to take my boys camping at least once a month. And we'd go up to Hay, Walker, or somewhere like that sort of thing. Just camp out. We didn't have a caravan. We just had a lean-to, just a campers across from one tree to another sort of thing, you know. And
Just a good way to switch off.
Yeah, we'd switch off. I would always tow our sort of motorbikes. I taught the kids how to ride motorbikes. So we used to go up there, and at first, when the first motorbike we took up, Grant was on the mudguard, Danny was on the tank, it was me, Brett was behind me, and Mary was behind him. It was five of us on a motorbike chasing kangaroos, mate.
That's
It was a fabulous time. Can you imagine that now?
Couldn't do it now, mate.
Don't back down. Don't get stressed out. Go home and have a beer and have a good family life, sort of thing. All my mates that I know, 2/3 of them are stressed out. They worry about the money, sort of thing there, right? If you haven't got it, why worry? Sort of thing there, right? And quite often, mate, we would pay all our workers at Christmas, holiday pay, and we'd go home with just enough money to survive, sort of thing. But it didn't worry us, sort of thing, you know, on that. And my wife, Mary, she was as tough as me, sort of thing, right? She was a Scot also like Maggie, right? That there. But the main thing is just to relax, and I suppose to have a hobby. And my hobby was always, I never played any sports in my whole life. As soon as I could drive, I had a Peugeot, and there's a reason I had a Peugeot. I joined the Peugeot club, and we would rally every Saturday night. And then that just moved on to me going camping. I took a 404 Puggy, a 60 model recently, to Cape York and back for all the rivers, and that was so relaxing, mate, you know. And when you go camping too, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no Wi-Fi, no bloody iPads and things like that sort of thing there, you know. You're just sitting up there, just relaxing, catching fish, shooting a bunny or something, you know. Yeah. And going through that recession we had to have, 89 to 91 roughly, I'd be up at 3 in the morning doing my paperwork, trying to make 2 and 2 make 6, sort of thing, you know, with the dollars sort of thing there. But and the other thing you got to be honest is with your suppliers, right? When that hit, and we thought we were going to go broke, sort of thing, right? I rang all my suppliers, and all my suppliers came in. I said, I can't pay you, but I'll pay you 10% more for everything that you sell me, and I'll pay cash for it. I didn't have a clue how I was going to pay it. And they said, fantastic, Ray. So none of them, there was only 2 big companies trying to close us, and that backfired. But all the rest said, no way, Ray. And that took 5-6 years to pay them all off. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
And like building our business, we started 72, right? It was the late 80s when just before the recession came, that we were really doing well, because you're buying machinery like that. My boys now, in sort of Semco and Rae-Line, we've gone into a thing called Bounce. Have you heard about Bounce?
No.
Bounce is about as big as Bunnings shed, nearly as big as Bunnings, and it's used as a gym. And we make the mats like this, big 3 metres by 4 metres, and we're now doing that all over the world. We've done 3 in South Africa, and we've done 2 in Dubai, we've done Norway, Sweden, and there's about three or four others, and we're now doing that all around Australia. And the boys, that's why I knew my boys were ready for it, because they had a tough time with their dad, but it paid off sort of in there. And I think too they've seen all the mistakes that I made, which were hundreds of mistakes sort of in there that you make because you have no education into how to run a business. You're actually just doing it daily sort of in there, you know. So so that is a beautiful business, mate, right there.